Hey guys, welcome back to another awesome, amazing deck tech with, again, Jamie Faulkner, one of the most well-loved players in the judge team in Utrecht. Bringing along one of the, I believe, one of the spiciest decks in the entire calling event, a Dromai deck that got into the top 8. Dude, how are you? How are you feeling? How was your time at Utrecht?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm still recovering from Utrecht.
It's a
I
rough,
had
big
maybe too
weekend.
much of a good time.
Yeah.
Um, got myself a bit burnt out, I think. It's just constantly going out with people, having a laugh.
Yeah.
We were out late every night to restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
and then obviously working hard in the tournament, having long days there.
Oh, mate.
So I've woken up today and I'm a bit exhausted, to say the least.
But still here, man. Still trucking to talk about this awesome deck. Thank you so
Oh
much for
yeah,
taking the
yeah,
time.
yeah. You won't stop me talking about Fab.
No, not at all.
But yeah,
But
no, Utrecht was lovely. The city is beautiful. Everyone was in such high spirits. It was really nice. The weather was good.
yeah,
We all met up in Madrid not long ago, but the heat there was unbearable for a lot of people.
yeah.
So the social sort of side of it wasn't so good because people just wanted to stay in a cold shower the whole time when they weren't playing in the tournament.
Live in the fridge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mate, it was so hot there. But
Oh.
here it was lovely. Everyone was going out every night. The canals are beautiful. The city's lovely. Do you know, I noticed something really weird.
What?
I live in London, right?
Yeah.
So for me, people don't smile at me. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just people don't like me. I don't know. But in Utrecht, you see a stranger and they immediately give you this really wholesome, honest smile, and
Right.
it took me back every time because I was like, "Whoa, people don't do that here where I live."
So what, you're just looking at people and they were just looking at you going,
Yeah, you just look at when you catch someone's eye as you walk down the street,
yeah.
and they might say, "Good morning, how are you?" And I just thought, "Wait, is that me you're talking to? Because I don't know you." And I think that's really weird. It's just so not my comfort zone.
Oh,
But it was
wow.
a really pleasant place to be.
Yeah, the Korean barbecue, you were adamant on the final day to
Mm.
go to that. That was
Oh,
that was pretty cool, man. That was an experience.
yeah. We
Yeah.
did go to some nice food places.
It was really cool. Anyway, so we didn't come here to talk about the lovely food, the lovely people, and the lovely food and the awesome weather. We come here to talk about the Dromai deck, this absolute beast. How long have you been working on this?
From the moment the spoilers came out, basically.
Wow. Okay. Okay. And so at what point were you happy? Like you've got like when you got the core deck and everything down, and the idea about what this deck should be. When did that start to land?
That's a funny one because we're in a few Discord groups together.
Hmm.
And I remember when Dromai first came out, I'm a big Prism player. I love Prism. I love Illusionist. I love the play style. And they both have the incremental advantage over turns,
Hmm.
play style, which is what I like. And I remember you can probably just search my name and see me say, "Why is Dromai so bad? Like, why does everything
Yeah.
have Phantasm?
Yeah.
She sucks. Everything's like low value." And then 2 weeks later, you might see me say, "Dromai's not so bad. Like, I can kind of see how a deck might work." And another 2 weeks later, actually, Dromai's busted. And I think we went to an RTN, the one that you won, the RTN that you won.
Yeah, I
I think
remember. I
like
remember
six
that
of us
one.
all took Dromai, and
Yeah,
we
yeah,
all,
that's it.
I think, 5 of us made top 8 with Dromai that day.
Yes, yeah,
So
and that's when
it
you
was just
knew.
evolving. But even then, that was only 3 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago,
Was it the
and
same
the list was
list?
no, completely different.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
Maybe 40 cards different.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize how drastic of a change. Like, what was it coming out of the RTN to now? What was the thing that you picked up and noticed?
So the first RTN I played, I was running maybe 5 blues, maybe probably
Okay.
less.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was basically just running 60 reds into everything.
Right.
Um, and that's kind of like the most optimal way a lot of the time to play Dromai.
Okay.
But I found that Viscerai was just impossible.
Right. Yeah.
Um, Even
Yeah,
though weirdly at that time we thought it was okay because me and you had tested quite a bit at that point,
I think
but
yeah.
you hadn't adapted your playstyle to beat Dromai yet.
No, no.
And then as soon as you did, it became really horrible to play that matchup.
Yes. And then you had to adapt it back, and then it swung it much more into your favor. And I think at that point, I
Yeah,
think
it's
both
almost
of us,
favoured me now.
yeah, but we both got to that point of where I said with Viscerai, I could optimize this more, but then like it gets to that point where you're just actually just making your other matchups worse. So there's got to be a level of where you got to stop optimizing
Yeah.
to a hero, and you got to just sort of go right. This is probably as good as I can get to keep up the value of playing into other heroes. This is probably as good as it can get. And it got quite, I think from our games it was Viscerai versus Dromai. I think either well, literally, which we both know, I think either hero can take it.
Yeah, I think it's at worst about 45% Viscerai favoured, but sometimes it's even Dromai favoured depending on the Viscerai build. Your build is quite good for Dromai.
Yeah.
You have lots of go again enablers, so
And then I just
you know,
felt like your Dromai deck was just absolutely crushing against Viscerai, because every time I see any other Dromai, I'm like, oh, this is not a game. And then when I play
mm,
you, I'm just like, oh, it's literally feels like it's timing. But let's dive in. Let's dive in more to this. So you've got Crown of Providence, Flamescale Furnace, and Phantasmal Footsteps as your equipment. Doesn't move, stays there. They're your pieces. Want to talk a little bit? Flamescale Furnace and Crown of Providence themes fairly obvious, right?
um, I mean, the Crown of Providence is obvious. There's really not much to say about that. It's just better than Skullcap,
Yeah.
especially in a deck that doesn't run that many blues. It is just better than Skullcap.
Mm-hmm.
And people saying it blocks less don't understand how the card works. Without being rude, you
Right.
literally gain an extra card in your hand when you block with it.
Yeah.
So it blocks for 5,
Right.
essentially.
Yeah.
It blocks for 5 and takes 1 card out of your deck. But if you're not intending to go to fatigue, that just blocks more than a Skullcap does.
Yeah.
And it even blocks on hits better than a Skullcap does because it gives you an extra card in hand.
Yes.
So when you sense your opponent doing a big turn, that's when you can go, here's a defensive crown, gain an extra card, and it actually nullifies a lot of it. It's crazy how good that card is for being defensive.
Right. That's
Um,
cool. And Flamescale?
Flamescale does so much for the deck. It lets you pitch stack, and one of the first things I will say about Dromai is that if you're not comfortable with pitch stacking and you don't really want to learn how to pitch stack, then maybe Dromai isn't for you because the deck is entirely about focused around pitch stacking. You need to be aware that you're not winning the game ever really before you hit your second cycle, and
Yeah.
it's when you hit your second cycle that your deck becomes really powerful.
Right.
So you spend half the game setting up for that, and then once you get there, if everything's good, you should know really like what your next hands are, so you can really abuse people for it. Like so you can plan how much ash you've got, etc., etc.
Yes.
So Flame Scale lets you pitch, pitch stack better. It lets you generate ash more.
Yeah.
It blocks well, and I just find that a lot of my turns against some of the not even this against everyone basically. Sometimes you just have a 4-card hand or a 3-card hand, and you pitch a card to play a card, and then you've just got a card that doesn't do anything, and you can just be like, well, I'll just pitch this for later.
Yeah.
And it lets you go through your deck quite quickly.
That's really good. So it's actually that sounds like an extremely crucial piece of the whole Dromai puzzle. Crown of Providence is doing its stuff, and that's every hero. But Flamescale Furnace sounds like one of the most crucial pieces of equipment for Dromai.
Yeah. It also, I mean, I haven't even talked about the fact that it enables you to play a 1-cost and a 2-cost with 4 reds in hand.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what the card obviously does.
Yes.
But that's actually not that common, to be fair.
No.
Normally, you're just using it to generate ash.
That's fair, man. So we'll go down, and we got also Phantasmal Footsteps. Interesting choice. I remember it started off as the stilettos. So what Phantasmal Footsteps? Why?
They, like I said, it's a deck that is slow. You want to get to your cycle. You have absolutely the ability to get to your cycle against anything really. And Footsteps allows you to 2-card block a 4 attack without using both cards, and it generates you an ash, and it keeps the pitch stack going.
Yeah.
So I found that when I played against things like Old Hymns who were trying to fatigue me by just popping every turn and then hitting me with a hammer. Um, this made it trivial to deal with because you just 2-card block it. You give them 1 card plus the footsteps,
Yeah.
and you're not really losing much in your deck for it, and you're slowly building up.
Yeah, it's because
Um,
they pitch 1 card to swing hammer, basically, but they're always taking 1 card out of your hand, but it's nowhere near as like there's not really many heroes that can get around that, right? By just going, well, have 1 card, pitch, and then you'll pitch, like you said, you pitch stacking. So that sounds,
yeah,
again,
they're
it's doing
they're
the same
losing the
job.
same amount of cards every turn as well.
Yeah.
Also, there's crazy things you can do on your opponent's turn with furnace and footsteps and things as well. Like if you play like a sigil or something,
Mm-hmm.
say you're against a Viscerai,
Yeah.
you can block with footsteps with the red.
Yeah.
Play a sigil.
Yeah.
Block maybe 1 arcane, and
Yeah.
then pitch a red to activate furnace because you've played a red card, and suddenly you've got 3 extra resources for arcane
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
wouldn't
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
had. You're basically getting the free block from footsteps anyway.
Yeah.
It makes blocking awkward hits really good for you
Yeah.
when there's other things that you need to spend resources on. It's the same with Oasis Respite and things like that, especially Oasis Respite because you're pitching for that anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go over to the hands. You got many hands. So you got the Nolan gloves. We'll start with that. Pretty straightforward. Sounds like Runeblade, right?
It's just for not even Briar, just for Viscerai and I guess Wizard.
Yeah. Silken Form.
That's for everything that isn't Viscerai, Wizard, or Guardian.
Right. Okay. So why Silken Form?
It's really good. It blocks any damage you want. So if something comes in, like really good against Briar because they can play like Amulet of Earth and buff something by 1, which gives it a break point, or even sometimes Lightning Press, things like that. Just random things that they can just try and get over the top with, and you just have that get out of jail button. And also, it makes an Ashwing at the end of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of those decks just can't deal with Ashwings, like especially Briar. Briar really doesn't like having to deal with Ashwings.
No. I think a lot of here. I think that's the one thing that does literally even me as a Viscerai player. The one thing that I hate to see is to see 6 Ashwings on the board, and then you're like, I've got to get this done because this is going to be over.
Yeah, you're just
This is
taking
going to be over
every
soon.
turn.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
absolutely. And then Ghostly Touch is, like you're saying, it's your Guardian card. Everyone was trashing on this card. What's your thoughts?
So it's my Guardian and Rhinar card. Anything that plays loads of 6s.
Yeah.
Just to make them consider really.
Mm.
Is it okay to block this? Because eventually this Ghostly Touch is going to come in for 20. You know. And there are ways to make it not have Phantasm.
Yes, absolutely, and we'll go into more of that when we go down further in the deck. So, has it won your games?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. All right.
It makes the Guardian matchup trivial because you're fine to kill Guardians without it. You can absolutely do it, and most of your games you will.
Yeah.
But in the rare games that something bad happens, because sometimes variance occurs, I find that the Ghostly Touch is the thing that you can fall back on as being like, well, there's nothing you can do about this. You're just going to take 30.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
You can just wait for the last turn of the game.
Yeah.
And like I said, with Dromai, you should be tracking your pitch. You should be aware of when things are coming. You should be stacking your semblances, at least with other blues or together. Like I normally stack them together because it's just easier there.
Yeah.
Your Arsenal 1, you've got 1 in your hand. But you should also, especially against Guardian, you should be tracking your opponent's pitch stack to some extent. You should be seeing when have they got cards that they've pitched that aren't 6s, and be aware that when that's you don't need to be aware when it is coming around, but just be aware of that it is. If they have a turn in the game at some point that they're not going to have a 6, you should know that because you can really abuse them for it. And my first game on the Friday, I won a game because of that, because I knew it was coming, and I got the feeling it was that turn, and I attacked with all my dragons. He blocked with 3 cards from hand, keeping 1, and I just went, okay, Ghostly Touch for 15, and he blocked with a pummel, and he died, exactly.
Right, got you.
And I had no protection for it, I just had a feeling.
Right, because
sometimes it happens.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. Right, well, that's the equipment. So let's go. We're going to roll this down to the. I was going to say the reds. There's quite a lot of them.
You probably want to start with the blues, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Start with the blues. So Billowing Mirage, Billowing Mirage, Sweeping Blow, Embermore Senpai. Is that how you pronounce it? I can never pronounce it. I'm going to say Senpai. Rake of Embers, 3 Passive Mirage, and 2 Semblances. So really, your 3 blue attacks are the Billowing, the Sweeping, and the Embermore. Why those cards?
So my initial, I've just made a QR code. Cool. My initial idea from going from the very heavy red deck to I want as many blues as I can put in the deck without destroying the deck, so that I have some game against Viserai. The first question I asked myself about that was, what can I benefit from having more blues? What, like, it can't just be I need blues to not die to Viserai, because that's not good enough. That's just not worth it. I'd rather take the loss and hope to dodge. There needs to be some benefit additionally to that. So obviously there's the legendary dragons, the 4, 5s, and 6 cost ones. There's the semblance package, which allows you for Ghostly.
Yeah.
And then there's the 3 cost dragons, the Vinserikai and the Necria.
Mm-hmm.
Both those dragons are really good if you can just draw them and play them immediately without any setup with one card.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's where I started with the deck. And then we've got to work out, how many blues do you want to be able to beat Viserai? How many blues do you want on average when you're playing those cards in every matchup? Well, you're not playing the semblance in every matchup, but when you're playing the expensive dragons in every matchup.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the flexible blues that we're going to use to be able to sideboard? Because we're not playing 17 blues in every matchup. We're playing like 10.
Right.
That's more than half the sideboard gone every matchup just to blues. So it means you can be really flexible with them.
Right.
The attacks are there because they block 3.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much it. The Senpai does 6 damage, so that sometimes that's relevant.
Yeah.
It does damage. Billowing makes an Ashwing, which is really good, and Sweeping Blow makes Ash. So they're never awful to see if you have to play them. None of them. Because you're happy to make, especially early game, you're really happy to make Ash. You're really happy to make Ashwings at any point in the game. And you're not too sad about just dealing 6 damage. Right. So they're just cards that block 3, pitch for 3, and I'm not crying if I have to play them.
No, that sounds like that sounds awesome. So the Passing Mirage, that seems very obvious. Do you ever run all 3? Is there times when you had to drop some, or are they always locked in 3?
I pretty much only run them when I have to run blues extra, or I'm against Guardian. So this is like the flexibility thing. Like I wouldn't just play them into a normal matchup. I don't see the point.
Right. Okay. Sure. Because I suppose really everyone else doesn't really have a lot of blues. It's really, you're making so many dragons. You have more dragons than they do have 6s at the end of the day. So
I just don't care if people run 6s into me. There's very few decks that actually bother me to run more 6s.
Right.
I think most decks just make their deck worse by putting in 6s against me, because it's equivalent to trying to play D-Reacts into Oldhim because they're going to swing with Hammer.
Yeah.
You're slowing your deck down to slow down the game against a deck that wants a slow game.
Yeah.
So I just don't. I really, and no one seems to agree with me.
Oh no. I agree with you, because once we sat down and we did those test games, and I remember throwing in just those 9th blades and all this stuff, and you're like, you just chucked in loads of cards to just pop all my dragons, and I'm thinking, yeah, well, that's kind of what I want to do. And then you said, no, don't do that. That's stupid, because it just doesn't. You're just making your deck worse. So then we played another game, and I said, right, you know what? We made a decision. I'm going to put in the 6 power cards. I would have just put in. They got double value. I was going to play them anyway, and they could
play the cards that you will play because they're good.
Yes.
Don't be putting in things you're never ever going to play that are only D-Reacts. It just doesn't make sense.
No. So in the second we done that, the game just into the Viserai into this Dromai deck just vastly improved, and it just suddenly made sense. Just play the 6 costs you were going to play anyway, and then and your Semblances sounds like your Guardian. Ghostly Touch.
Well,
Like,
Passing Mirage and Semblance are Guardian tech, really,
yeah,
and Reinhardt.
yeah,
Um, Break the Embers, it just makes more Ash Wings. I was playing the yellows, but obviously I just wanted more blue, so I made them blue.
yeah.
It's actually really nice because if you pitch a red to play it, you get an Ash and an Ash Wing. It's
Right.
really good for that value. So sometimes you can do really crazy plays. I had a turn 1 against a Briar where I went pitch a red, play blue Rake, gain an Ash Wing and an Ash, pitch another blue, play a Necria, and then I just
Right.
end my turn 1 with Necria and an Ashwing. And this Briar is looking at me like, "What? How do I lose now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you do. The game's over now.
The game is what?
This board is far too good already, and it's only turn 1."
All right. Okay. Before we go down to the obvious dragons, you got. We'll talk a little bit about the CNCs, the Angel Red attacks. I think, how many red attacks do you have? You got Sweep and Blow, and Billowing Mirage red. I think you've explained it pretty well in the blues, right? It's what it's doing in blue, but better. The other
Yeah,
attacks
you just need some things that like don't require Ash to play,
yeah,
because sometimes you have no, like that. People say this to me all the time, like, "Oh, what if you're halfway through the game and you have no Ash?" That's you that's made a mistake, not the deck.
mm.
There's no excuse for it. It's literally only turn 1 that it's a problem. So you just need enough cards in your deck that you have something to play to generate you some Ash, and that can be like any 0 cost red will do it because of Furnace.
Yes.
Um, so
Well,
like things like Sigil generate Ash essentially.
yeah.
Just cost 1 to do it.
Well, you've literally got a hero that makes Ash. Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't need to play the card to make Ash. You've got a hero that goes, you just itch. I do it all for you. Fine.
Yeah, but if your hand has nothing that you can pay for without the Ash because the additional cost is the Ash,
Yeah.
then you might need to go Sigil, pay 1 resource for Furnace, generate an Ash, and then play a Dragon.
Got you. Got you.
So you can have to do some really awkward things sometimes. There just needs to be some cards that have like Go Again and have the ability to generate Ash. So not Sand Cover, Sweeping Blow is good for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Billowing is just it's nice as well.
Yeah.
They're not exciting, but they're just required.
Only 2 copies of
Some-
Billowing. I take it you just couldn't find
So
slots.
originally those 2 copies on the Friday when I played, they were Fog Downs instead of Billowings.
Oh, okay, sure.
So they were 2 Fog Downs. I literally didn't have space for anything else. I didn't have space for a third. I didn't want a third either. And then I played it on the Friday, and I just didn't think the Fog Downs were worth it. So I cut them out.
Even though it was the reason you beat me. That
I didn't think it was.
Oh no, dude! That I basically took a heap of damage to go. I've got a turn that's just going to continue this onslaught. I'm on 30 health. You're on 15. I've got a Shrill. I've got a Skies. I think I had a Gloom.
Yeah, I mean you had the Gloom Veil. That was the
that was the turn where I was like, I'm just going to take everything you're doing. And I'm just going to come back. And then you went, okay, hit, Fog Down.
Yeah,
Fog Down.
It gave me some damage, but like I just didn't think it was impactful enough, and it required me to be ahead at that point, right?
Yes.
And if I wasn't ahead, it's just terrible.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. So
it was also put in because it's really good in the mirror. But I saw that there was 2 Dromais on the Friday.
Right.
And I was the only one that did well, so I just thought I'm probably not going to play against the mirror.
Yeah.
So I took it out for the only card that I had available to me, which was Red Billowing, which I wasn't sad about.
No, but it's Fog Down a very good card for the mirror.
Yeah, because most of your Go Again enablers are dragons.
Yeah.
Which are all non-attack actions.
Yeah.
With Go Again, so it actually it means that they can't kill your board.
No, that's
unless there's like 9 cards in their deck that enable Go Again at that point after a Fog Down. So you can just pitch stack it and wait for them to not have those 9 cards anymore.
Yeah.
And that's how you win the board, basically.
Fair enough. And CNC?
CNC used to be Phantasmaclasm,
right,
for the Viserai matchup because it's pretty good against Viserai.
Yeah.
Viserai is like a kind of small combo deck. Every hand needs all the cards in the hand really to do stuff.
Yeah.
And you can often really wreck their turns with it. But I found that the matchup was good enough without it, and I wanted to have some more insurance against Fi.
Right.
And CNC is pretty good against Fi.
Yeah. so it is pretty good against Fi. Not a race
It's also a
face.
popper, like in the mirror. In the mirror, so I was taking out some mirror cards, putting some in.
Yeah.
It's good against Prism.
And what would if someone? So I like to do this. Like some people don't own CNC's a hard card to grab. Erase Face is a newer card that's coming out. If someone was struggling to get a CNC, would Erase Face be a card worth slotting in instead to do potentially the same thing against Fi?
No,
CNC quite crucial.
no, I don't think so.
No, okay, fair enough.
I don't think Erase Face is that good.
No, fair enough. I mean, I as a Visceral player, I hate to see it, but you know, it certainly
Yeah,
makes
I mean, it
sense.
affects you way more than it affects Fi. Fi doesn't care that much.
You not think? Oh, well, that's
I mean, if Fi has like a really good turn coming up with the spreading flames and all of that,
yeah.
sure, they might care more, but you don't know that because they're
No,
never blocking you anyway.
that's true. That's true. Okay, so I think the next bit there's two more important things to talk about with this deck, and that's basically you have a ton of defensive cards. So let's I tell you what, I'm going to throw burn them all in with the dragons. I think that card is effectively a dragon card. So defensive cards and dragons. Let's go through the defensive cards. You got the Fate for Scenes, you've got Sandcover, you've got Sink Below and Sigil of Solace, and that's all you've got. So a very
Sigil
very
can also be thrown in with the dragons, to be honest.
what Sigil of Solace? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. We'll throw that in with the dragon. So the 3 sinks, 2 sand covers, and the 3 Fate for Scenes. This deck seems to be a very control deck.
It's an illusionist deck, right?
Right.
So you play for tempo, you don't play for control.
Okay.
Some people talk to me and they're like, "Oh, so you try and fatigue everyone?" I'm like, "No, you probably run out of cards before other people do.
Right.
But what you do is kill people by having incremental advantage and constantly forcing tempo."
Right.
Dromai is probably the tankiest hero in the game because everything she runs is 3 or 4 block.
Yeah.
And she gains loads of extra health through dragons,
Hmm.
and she runs Sigil of Solace for the turns that she doesn't have to full block things. So every time someone hits a dragon, that's her healing, essentially, and they heal more than auras do. I think it's hard to tell because Prism is way less block heavy than Dromai, so it's hard to know
Yeah.
what's better defensively, auras or dragons. But dragons are cheaper, easier to get out.
Yeah. That's true.
So she's a control deck in the sense that she blocks very well and she has a really, really high health pool. But she is a tempo deck.
Got you.
Everything she's doing is to try and force the opponent to make the decision between ignoring dragons and losing the race because your opponent essentially has a 15 card hand every turn because they're
Yeah.
leaving dragons on the board,
Yeah.
or killing dragons every turn and losing tempo because all the Dromai is going to do at that point is play another 4 dragons, and then they have to spend their whole hand killing those dragons, and then Dromai just essentially just gets to hit you for free, and then you have to spend your entire turn not blocking and then killing the dragons, and then not blocking and then killing the dragons, and eventually die.
Yeah.
She puts you in. She locks the game up very quickly into no-win situations.
Okay, and then these cards are basically these very good blocking enabling cards that are red, which is also perfect for the plan.
Yeah, so you can pitch them as well, like you often do.
Oh wow, okay, brill. Sand cover, good card. What good card?
It's fine.
Fine.
It's worse than Sink Below.
Yeah.
And Fate. It's probably worse. It's better than Sink and Fate against Bravo
Yes.
because it doesn't count as blocking.
No.
Dominates.
Yeah.
So it's one of those cards that in a dominate heavy meta is probably better and will be run more, but in a go wide meta, it's quite resource heavy.
Yeah, it takes up that precious Ash, but it depends. If you've got a game where Ashes seems to be going quite well, the card's probably like great, right? But
yeah, but equally, it's just a 0 for 4 block against Fi just doesn't feel great.
No,
Honestly, it doesn't feel much different to a 3 block because most of the time it's coming in for 3. They're just hitting you more times than you have cards in hand to block.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that all you got then? How is this a very good card or is it a very specific card?
It's well both.
Right, it's a very good specific card.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's good when it's good, and it's not played when it's not.
yeah,
So it's really good against Fi
yeah.
because, as I said, we're a tempo deck. We do have to generate some tempo, some value. We can't just block and do nothing else because that's you're just not going to win those games. And that all you got allows you to play a hand after you block for full. So some really good uses for it is to Arsenal one and wait for the next one, and then go, here's six card block,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to have a 2 card hand afterwards. And Dromai is absolutely perfectly happy to play on a 2 card hand.
Yes.
Most of the time you play the game, it will be on a 2 card hand
And it's usually just
or a 1 card.
it's usually pitch a card to play the red card and then come in and start slamming with your board state.
Yeah, I mean there are multiple phases of the game about how you play. In the mid game, you're looking to pitch to play, and in the late game, you're looking to just go here's 0 costs. So I'll block for 3 cards, play a 0 cost, or block for 2 cards, play a 0 cost, Arsenal my other 0 cost. So the next turn I can block for 4.
Mm.
And you're just looking to lock the game into a situation where you have enough dragons that you're satisfied that you have the board forever.
Yeah.
And then you just get to play a 0 cost to enable the go agains and hit them a bunch.
Awesome. So let's talk about probably the most important thing about this deck and the whole reason everybody loves it. It's these sexy dragons, right? So as I can see, I don't think... No, wait, there is a dragon that I'm not seeing.
One dragon.
There's one dragon. And when we all first saw it, it just seemed like absolutely crazy good. And then you soon find it was actually very, very, very specific. Can't remember the name of that one.
Themai.
Themai, yeah. Okay, so you don't play that one. Why is that?
It's really good against Wizard.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm already running Sand Cover, Oasis, Respite, and 17 blues, and I'm playing Illusionist, so I don't need to tech for Wizard. I'm quite happy with Wizard anyway.
Okay. What about the Prism Mirror?
No, because they just play it. They just play an aura in response to you playing it, and then they just kill it the next turn.
Okay, that's very true. So it's a very hyper-specific dragon to deal with. If a meta came around where Wizards are starting to, I don't know, be very good for some reason, and that's a very good card to take.
Even then, I think it's a choice between I think LSS did a really good job designing Dromai because they've enabled 2 different versions of the deck to be played, where one is really red heavy and one is it has lots of blues.
Mm.
And the deck that has lots of blues doesn't need Themai, but the deck that doesn't have lots of blues really wants Themai because you don't want to have to be pitching for Arcane.
No.
So I think if I didn't have lots of blues, I'd probably have the space to play Themai, and then I'd probably also want to play Themai because that's my surety in the Wizard matchup.
Yeah. Okay. So seem to have all of the dragons in their full, apart from Uvia. So let's talk about Uvia.
Uvia is not very good.
So why have we got the one?
She so we're playing a deck that pitch stacks.
Yeah.
We are seeing every card in our deck multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And she is good in certain situations that you've set up for her to be good in.
That's it. Right. Okay.
So basically, this deck. I mean, I'm actually a bit disappointed that this deck doesn't have more one-offs because I think that it's the perfect deck for lots of one-offs, so that you can set up things for. Right. Uvia is good against certain when you've got lots and lots of ash and lots of space. Or not lots of space, lots of pressure.
Yeah.
She's really good then. So, for instance, against Guardian, when you've got like a Passing Mirage, a Miragi, a Vinserikai, and a bunch of Ash Wings, and you've got 7 Ash, and you just go, here's an Uvia, but I know you have to kill something else next turn, and I'm never attacking with it.
No.
It generates a lot of value.
Yeah.
But she's very, very Ash hungry. And you just generally do better things with the Ash.
Okay.
So I figured she was worth the inclusion as a one-off because it blocks 3, and when she's good, she's very good. When she's bad, I'm probably just going to block with her.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll move on to the legendary dragons are, they're good. Right?
They're very good when you can just draw a 4-card hand and play them, which is what this deck can do.
So, which ones is there? Are they all got their own rules, or is there a best one? And I think I know what the best one is. Well, I know what I think.
Well,
Mine would be.
I think the best one's Optimi. I think Optimi is sick.
Oh, right. Mine's Tumultai, man. I think Tumultai.
Yeah, but like Tumultai is good in certain matchups, and it's useless in others.
Right.
It actually just does nothing in a lot of matchups. Like I don't really care about it against you. It's fine because I can kill your creepers, but I don't care that much.
It seems to win
Brian,
you. I've seen it win you a couple of games when I saw you take out. I think it was at an
Null Rune.
RTN. Yeah, you took out that guy's Null Rune, and I was like, why?
Yeah, that's when Tumultai is my favorite. That taking out Null Runes and Master Momentums. That's what Tumultai does.
Yeah.
And other than that, I don't really care that much.
No, that's fair enough.
Mostly people overreact to Tumultai.
Right, got you.
And that's better than actually what happens.
That's fair.
But Optimi just slaps. Just so much damage.
Yeah, it does.
I think on the Friday, I won almost every game with Optimi.
Oh, so if an Optimi came out, you win.
Optimi plus 2 blues. By the time it came back round, they died to it. Because I had 3 Burnamals on the field, and I hit them for 9 arcane. And they just die.
Fair. And then what about is it Dominet? Is it Dominia? Dominia, yeah, that's it. That one. Fine.
She does stuff. She's not too resource intensive.
No.
So she doesn't really feel like a legendary dragon. She can act like a legendary dragon sometimes when you're trying to combo finish people, like especially guardians. She's really nice to go. You can set up a turn where you have like some form of phantasm destruction, like Miragi, and you're spending most of the first half of your game just doing that anyway. Trying to get 2 forms of phantasm destruction on the board, either passing Mirage or Miragi times 2.
Yeah.
And then you just have a late game turn where you draw blue plus anything plus Dominia plus Chromie, and preferably another Chromie in the arsenal, and you just go Chromie, Dominia, take out a 6, gain 2 action points, and then you just get to swing for free with your whole board.
Yeah, that's fair. So
that's one of the win conditions you can look for.
Cool. So I think the fairly straightforward dragons of Asvalai, Chromai, Hyloria, Miragi, they are and Yenderai as well. I'll put Yenderai in there as well.
Mate, Yenderai is 6. Yeah, my favorite dragon.
Yeah, it's such a sticky dragon.
It just never dies. No one wants to commit to killing it.
Those dragons are quite simply the feels like the bread and butter of the dragons, right?
Well, I think the 1-cost dragons are all tempo based.
Mm-hmm.
So they are there to obtain the board.
Yeah. And
you'll see that mostly because they all do similar things in the sense that they are hard to kill. And I include Kyloria in that, and I'll explain why in a second. They're hard to kill and just a bit annoying. The reason that Kyloria is hard to kill is because people block her, and then you've just got a worse hand to deal with it.
Yeah.
So because people really overreact to Kyloria. So I spend most games into most matchups. The first part of the game, I'm playing the 1-cost dragons and the 3-cost dragons to try and obtain tempo, and I'm pitching away the 0-cost ones because the 0-cost ones finish games. They're really good at finishing games.
Right.
You don't really just want to play them to tempo because they die quickly. They don't have much defensive value on the board. And what they're really good at is attacking. So you generally want to pitch them early game and then set up 6 Ash for when you get to your cycle, and you can just have a turn. I mean, the turn that always wins the game, and it feels like it wins the game on the spot, is if you go, here's a turn, I have 2 Asvalais, 2 Chromies, and I have 5 Ash, and some dragons. And you take 15 damage from your opponent, and you just play 4 dragons, and the game ends, because their choice then is to kill the dragons and lose, or not kill the dragons and lose. They have there's just no win condition from them from most decks.
All right, that's fair. And then the 2 cards, I think a lot, especially one of them, Vinsarakai, I think a lot of people has wrote that card off as like, this card is too expensive. It's not worth its value. And Necria as well. I think everyone was kind of fine with Necria. I mean, when I say everyone, I don't actually. It's generally like possibly the small the small population of people I hear from. But Necria and Vincerica are too expensive and not worth the value. Is how wrong are they?
So I wouldn't play them if I was not playing heavy blue.
Mm-hmm.
But in a deck that can just draw them and play them, they do their job. And this is where I come back to. I think where LSS designed Dromai exceptionally well.
Yeah.
I think one of the best design heroes in the game, because those dragons are good when you're forced to run blues. They're not good when you're not.
No.
So Necria, it does the exact purpose of giving you ash when you make less ash because you're running more blues.
Yeah.
Necria is really, really sticky.
Yeah. Very
not
difficult.
as sticky as Yandori, but really sticky. It often stays on the. People just ignore it, and it generates so much value. People say Uvia was the genesis of Dromai. I think it's Necria.
Right. Yeah, because the ash is
does something
very
every time.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's generating new resources, which is what Genesis does.
Yeah.
And Vincerica, like I said, this is a tempo deck. Everything you do is to gain tempo, to hold tempo, to mess with your opponent's tempo. Vincerica threatens so much damage. It's a quarter of their health.
Yeah.
Just for a 2-card hand, his 9 damage. It quickly makes your opponent think about things like, do they block? Because if they block, then you've won tempo. If they kill it, you've won tempo. If they don't kill it, you hit them again. Suddenly they're going to deal with it. They can't take many hits from Vincerica. So, and if you think about the value it gives, even if they literally hit it with a Phoenix Flame, that's still a 2-card hand, 10 damage swing.
Yeah.
And most decks can't just hit it with a thing. They have to do 4 damage to it, like swing a hammer or a weapon or something. That's it.
Yes.
So it's a crazy swing. So it doesn't. The 1 damage, the 1 health is kind of irrelevant because it does its job the moment it attacks and it forces threats and power.
No.
It's also really good against Guardian.
Oh.
Just decks that are trying to play slow against you, and you'd be surprised how many there are that just try and fatigue you. Most of my games over the weekend were just slow games. So when you go, you pitch 2 blues, you go Miragi, Yandori, Vincerica, attack with Vincerica for 6, no Phantasm. Suddenly they're taking 12 damage, and you've got crazy board state.
Yeah, no, and once you start slamming those dragons down, I can imagine it's especially Miragi, and you've got a passive Mirage. It just gets out of hand really quickly.
Well, people just give up trying to deal with the Phantasm removers. They just accept the first hit is free, and they pop the second one because it's just too much. They can't not kill dragons. They have to kill big scary dragons. If a Vincerica comes down against a Guardian, they really should kill it because otherwise it's going to start threatening a lot.
Oh, 100%. That dragon's got to go. In fact, that's the thing about this deck. They've all got to go.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If my turn is play Miragi, play Vincerica, hit you for 9, give me 2 cards, and then pitch 1 card to kill 1 dragon, which are you killing? It's not. Most of the time they choose Miragi first, which might be correct. But then I get to keep Vincerica on the board
and do it again.
Another Miragi or something.
Yeah. Oh God. I'm gonna. Is Oasis of Spite worth mentioning more? Is that because I didn't lump this into the defensive stuff? Is it pretty straightforward? Is it quite an important card, or is it just
fine.
doing the same thing?
It enables go again. It enables ash generation. Yeah. Sometimes you can just have it in your arsenal and pitch a red, gain an ash, gain a life, gain go again. And that's like the worst case application of that card.
Yeah.
Which is not the worst thing in the world.
No.
It's pretty nice against Bravo for obvious reasons. It's pretty nice against Briar for the same reasons.
Okay, cool.
Just
in case someone goes, oh, you didn't mention that. But yeah, no, that was a really cool event.
It's quite flexible.
Yeah, cool. And then possibly one of the one card we all looked at and went, ugh, this card is pure trash. And then within a day,
it ended up being the best card in the deck.
Then we're like, oh, hang on a minute, this is very good. Burn them all. So is that every time I see that card coming down, that is the
game
sign.
ends, right?
That is the sign.
It's over.
The game is wrapping up now.
I can see people because I had quite a lot of people watch my games quite regularly because people were like, "Whoa, what's this Dromai doing? Why is he in table 1?
Yeah.
What's going on?" And it got to the point that when people realized that I'd got to my pitch stack and I have a turn where I go, burn them all, crow me, and that was just what I was doing every game. People started to be like, okay, he's won now. We've got to the point where he wins.
Right.
Because it looks like you dirtle a lot, and then suddenly you just start doing a lot of damage. Burn them all is, so like I said, the 1-cost cards are your tempo cards. The 0-cost cards are your kill cards. Burn them all is a 0-cost go again that does like 6 damage, that blocks 3.
Yeah.
You don't care that it does it over a long period of time because that's what your deck does. That's entirely what your deck does. It's entirely an incremental advantage. So you don't care. It just does absolutely insane damage. It's like your highest damage card in the deck, other than I think in terms of value, it's probably better than Optimi even.
Oh, really?
Because it's a 1-card hand deals 6 rather than a 3-card hand deal 12. So yeah, cards really, really good, and some people say to play. I mean, lots of people. It's not. I think I'm the only person of the people I know that play a lot of Dromai that say you should play 3 in every single matchup, regardless of what's happening.
Yeah.
Because some people say, oh, but you can just play 1 and that's going to do the damage. No, you can play 3 and then it's dealing 3 damage a turn rather than 1.
Yeah.
What?
It does more.
It literally does a lot more because the more turns you keep it up, the more cost it does. So if you play 3 and you have it for 5 turns, you're doing so much more damage than if you play 1 and you have it for 7.
Suddenly you're a Rune Blade. Just you come in.
Yeah, and it's such pressure because people take damage to Dromai like incidentally. You might just deal like 1 or 2 here. You know, sometimes you just go, you block with 2 cards and then you pitch a red, play blue billowing, hit for 1. They're not going to block that, and then you hit with an Ashwing. Not going to block that. They've taken 2 damage, and you're like, yeah, that's been a really good turn for me. I'm really happy with that. and people were like, oh, that was a bad turn. I was like, nah, I'm really, that 2 damage, man, that's going to stack. So yeah, you just normally what happens is by the time you've got to your pitch stack, you might be on 20, they might be on 25, and you just know that you just play Asvalide 2 burn them alls. And they're just going to die. They just die to Arcane.
Yeah.
You don't have to do any more physical after it. Your deck actually does 40 damage in Arcane. Easily.
Wow.
So yeah, so like you can just kill people with Arcane.
Yeah, cool.
And burn them all is the reason for that. So playing any less than 3 feels silly to me.
Okay. Well, that's a real good comprehensive rundown of the deck. What we'll do is we'll try and simplify the decks that you'd like to see against this, or probably say heroes that you're like, yeah, easy. Like I'm feeling the most comfortable with this, and then we'll talk about some that are a little bit uncomfortable. So the matchups you are happy to see.
So Dromai is an illusionist hero. Illusionist heroes are pretty good across the board generally.
Mm-hmm.
They have Guardian, which they are favored into massively, like to almost to the point that it's a buy. But other than that, everything feels 50-50. And it just feels like player skill is very important. And for me, as I'm a competitive player, but I don't really care that much about winning. More so, I just want to have really good games and keep getting better and feel like I'm improving my consistency. So for me, it's really important to play a deck that I feel like the outcome of the game isn't necessarily dependent on factors outside my control.
Right. Got you.
So I like playing decks that have a good, just clean 50-50 matchup curve, and Illusionist has always really had that. The worst matchup is Viscerai, probably. Yeah. Although with this deck, it doesn't feel too bad. It's like 45%, 40% at worst.
Yeah.
Fi's probably not so good. I hadn't tested versus the combo Fi before this. I wasn't aware that they could just do 40 damage in a turn.
No, neither did
that seems slightly busted to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew of the deck. I knew of the Lynx deck. I just didn't know it would actually do that much damage in a turn, and it could be done so consistently so early. But I played against Pete Ward, who ended up coming second. I played a few games against him, and he didn't just kill me ever. All the games went down to like very close fatigue.
Right.
So I'm not sure what's worse. They're both not great, but they can be made better. I think what probably happens is the Viserai matchup gets made worse, so that the Fire matchup gets made better, because I'm expecting more Fire.
Yeah.
When I built this deck, it was because I was expecting more Viserai.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's the running theme across the other stuff where you've got to now go right. We all walked into this having some pretty good deck against other stuff, and I think Fire's now just turned up into a. We've got you can't beat Fire. I don't think you can do well in a tournament. So that's the new.
Yeah, so that's my baseline now and that's the beauty of Illusionist is Illusionist can look at any matchup and be like, I'm gonna do things that will make this matchup better. So that's my next kind of week's testing experience is trying to work out what cards hurt Fire.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, Jamie, I think you've covered everything really well. Thank you so much for coming on and giving us your lowdown about Dromai. It was awesome to literally come and hang out with you for the 4 days in Utrecht. It was a wild ride. We definitely knew where you were at every given point. Just follow the men. Just follow the men in yellow tops.
Yeah.
Because to be fair, just to clarify as well, I think you probably just gave out more rulings about your own thing that you're like, right, dude, like this. It was basically a judge call on almost every ruling on anything that just seemed, even if you did it, or if it was a positive thing for them, like yeah, like it's just not me trying to get you out or like me trying to cheese you out. It was we just need to keep the integrity and the rules of this game the highest level.
It's the same thing that I didn't really play when Prism came out, but I heard kind of what happened is that the people that played Prism knew the rules for Prism. The people that didn't play Prism had no idea what was going on.
Right.
And loads of mistakes were happening because of that, because Illusionists have so many weird rulings that don't make sense to people that don't play Illusionist.
Right.
So there was just look like the big one was playing an attack, not declaring the target, and doing something that then gives you information before you declare the target. So things like Ravenous Rabble was the main one that kept happening, where they just go Rabble and then immediately flip the top card of the deck. I'm like, dude, you really have to target first. You can't look at the top card because if they hit a blue and suddenly they're doing 2 damage, then they're not going to be targeting my 3 health dragon, are they? They're going to be targeting something else.
Yes.
Or me.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even Mechanologist, which we saw,
which I saw.
Yeah, they played the attack, they boosted, the boost hit, and then they got to pick. Then they said, "Oh, I'm going to go for the dragon," and it's like, well, it's very difficult. You can't just then pick and choose which one's the best one to go for. You know, where are you going to? What was your intention? Were you always coming for me? Were you always coming for? It's kind of wild, really.
That's a really complicated. I know it's a really stupid and mundane issue that 99% of the time changes nothing, but it's actually a really complicated ruling to fix on. I've spoken to lots of judges now about it, and we're not sure what the best way to fix it is. I've had one suggestion, which was the defending player, the Dromai player, gets to pick. You rewind the board state, and you get to pick if the top card, because normally they draw a card, right? You get to pick if the top card goes back on the top or goes to the bottom of the deck, and then they get to play the card again, and then they announce what the target is before they reveal. So the Dromai player, for instance, if it's a Rabble, and they see a blue and they see a red, maybe you put it to the bottom and then they get to repick. Or
right.
But
I always thought that
the solution.
I always thought the natural solution was if you just played the card out and you don't declare the target's always the hero. If you just go, I'm going to do it, and then I'm just going to follow through. To me, it feels like the natural instinctual thing is, well, we're always targeting the hero, never the dragon. So
that's how they ended up ruling it.
Yeah. Well, that one felt like it made
apparently there's some issues with that as well. I'm not a judge. I don't know. I just know when rulings aren't followed correctly.
Well, we know that. Anyway, dude, thank you so much for your time, and I hope everyone you've enjoyed this awesome, amazing Dromai deck. Just take it to an armory. I think this is one of those sort of heroes and decks that will probably, over time with practice, will actually help you level up as a player.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, if you spend work on it, you will get so much better at pitch stacking because you'll work out the cards that you want to see later, and then you'll realize, oh, I pitched this. Next hand, it will be a different dragon that I remembered pitching. You'll get better at it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
and I think the deck is quite easy to sideboard for. We haven't really spoken about sideboarding, but it's quite simple. Basically, you're taking out 6 blues and some defense reactions in every matchup,
Right. Okay. So
and
the
you're keeping all the dragons always.
right. Okay. That sounds really easy. It sounds really easy. You just basically cherry pick the blues and the defense reactions based on the matchup, and you
And
plan.
C that comes in and out. That's about it.
Okay, but your dragons are always the plan, always the way. Everything else fits
Yeah,
around that. So
it's all about tempo with dragons.
yeah, awesome. Right, dude. Thank you so much.
Thank you.